Welcome to Worlds Cooldown, presented by State Farm, your one-stop wrap-up for all things Worlds. Today I'm joined by Golden Glue, Raz, and Kobe to break down Group B, but also to look ahead at the draw show for the knockout stages. Golden Glue, thank you so much for joining us. Here's the results of Group D, but I just want to stop and talk about that last game of the day real briefly. What a treat, however low kill it may have been. Two top teams going at it.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. And I can't think of the last time I watched a game of League of Legends. I was so intense, 0 kills, that it was really just, you know, any moment the game could be won, and we really did see that moment with Knight's Orianna's ult.
Yeah, high execution gameplay. Moments that I remember you pointed out one of the team fights that happened that started off with like Orianna getting picked, quote unquote, because she ended up surviving through Lulu ultimate and flashing away. Another thing, when Vladimir tried to come in through a flank, flash forward, instantly gets exhausted. Like, the execution was insanely high for both teams. I just want to see these teams play off in a best of 5.
I hear that. Kobe?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it wasn't like they weren't fighting over stuff, though. Even though there weren't kills, they were fighting over all these objectives. They were fighting over kindred marks for the entire game, and we kept having these kind of great escape moments. You know, Galio justice punching over to the Bard tunnel, then being able to get into the Kindred ultimate. Like, there's so many defensive cooldowns that I use to get this record, break the world record for the longest first blood at Worlds.
I'd love to see. You're like, what a great way to end. It's been a record-setting Worlds in a couple different ways. The draw show just about to begin, so as we head inside, I will hit you with a couple of the rules. Obviously, the teams will be randomly picked, first from Pool 1, and placed into the quarterfinals bracket. Nothing too crazy is going to happen there. The real fun is when we start pulling in those Pool 2 seeds, in which no Pool 2 seed can be placed on the same side of the bracket as the team that they were in the same group with. So don't worry, we'll walk you through it as it happens. We're heading inside now to take a look at how it all breaks down in the knockout stages. And as they start pulling the teams, I want to get you guys' general sense on the 8 teams that have qualified through to the knockouts. Frosk said perhaps one of the closest and most contentious 8 we've ever had. I think there's no clear favorite, and it does feel like everyone might be a contender.
Yeah, for me, I'm really excited to watch Damwon and Top especially, but I do feel like there's just so many really good teams at this Worlds event, and I think this is going to be quarterfinals is going to be when it starts getting really exciting, just because of how many top-heavy teams this tournament feels like. It's just all really strong teams, and then, you know, a handful of not-so-strong teams.
Yeah, and another thing that comes to mind are like sleeper teams in a sense, like G2, Fnatic, or even I would throw in JD. Teams that are on, you know, Pool 2, but for sure can ramp it up. Like you've seen world champion IG in 2018 is a good example of that. Even to a certain degree, an underperformer in group stage in Fun Plus Phoenix that ended up winning the same champion. I'd love to just point out that both Tien and Ning are the ones actually drawing in both finals MVP, so that's nice to see.
That's a great call out. Kobe?
We didn't have any crazy upsets. You know, all the favorites got through. There was no, you know, big moment where we had a downfall of one of these top teams coming from one of the top regions. Pretty much, you know, the only big downfall was North America not getting a team on through. So it should be, like they were kind of alluding to, some really tough competition here. Top and Suning on the first top.
I was going to say already that is a possible semi-final matchup then. Top Esports and Suning on the same side of the bracket as we look for the final 2 Pool 1 seeds to be drawn. But Raz, what's your take on that potential semi-final?
That always happens. Last year it was literally FPX and IG. The semifinals ends up being the LPL teams going up against each other. So that's always something to point out if that does end up happening. I want to see who they end up going up against.
Well, Gen G will be the first team on the lower side of the bracket to be pulled, which means, of course, that we only have 1 left to go.
Also, I mean, LPL got 3 teams through, so what are you complaining about? We're gonna have a fight.
All right, okay. I take what we get. That's fine. I'm happy with that.
Pretty good. If everything goes correctly here, this next draw should beat Damwon Gaming to fill out the Pool 1 seeds. And then I start to get really curious about the 1-2 matchups. Again, I'll remind everyone that the Pool 2 seeds are G2, JD, Fnatic, and DRX. So are there any 1-2 matchups that you guys are particularly hoping for?
I think one thing would be LEC's history versus the LPL. I know specifically Perks gave that interview where he said they don't care who they match up against, but given their history, I think they might prefer one of the LCK teams rather than the LPL ones, because this current roster of G2 has only won a single game versus an LPL team, and that was the one game versus Suning this year that they took in the group stage.
Well, G2 is first team to be pulled, but here's the deal. Because Suning is in the upper bracket, G2 must go to the lower bracket. You cannot be placed on the same side as your own group opponent. So they will dodge both top and Suning, and instead get placed into the first matchup in the lower bracket. Yes, Raz, tell us.
Is that Damwon? Am I correct in being able to believe
No, Damwon should have been the fourth team to be pulled.
Yeah.
Oh,
This would be a Gen G matchup. So Golden Glue, what's your take there? A G2 versus Gen G matchup.
That's exciting. I wasn't, I think G2 definitely lucked out that they couldn't go versus top. I think that's like really good versus. I think this is still gonna be a really close one. That's an extremely exciting game where there's obviously Gen.G is coming in as the first seed into the favorites, but I could definitely see G2 taking them out as well.
Ooh, Fnatic the next to be pulled. So both EU squads coming out hot. Of course, Gen.G is on the lower side of the bracket, so Fnatic will get slotted in right there at the top, gentlemen. Top Esports.
Oh my goodness.
Woo, baby.
Send the salute out. I want to point out the first thing. I actually think G2 going up against Gen.G, like, that's great for them. I would actually say that Gen.G is the worst of the Pool 1 seeds, because you have top Esports, Suning, Damwon. It would be a bit of a tie for me between Suning and Gen.G, but I think it's a really good matchup for G2. For Fnatic, good luck, man. That one's as hard as it can get. Maybe that one's a tough one.
I will say that for G2, I feel like the bottom lane is going to be pretty difficult versus Gen.G. So it's not like they're going to have a free pass here.
Yeah.
JD Gaming just pulled, and of course Damwon being on the lower side does mean that JD will match up here against Suning.
That's the quarterfinals. That's what you don't want to see right there. You don't want to see that. Gives me vibes of 2014 OMG going up against EDG. Just team kill after team kill. That's the LPL history, my friends.
That's pretty crazy. All 3 LPL teams in the top half.
Insane!
If I recall correctly, this was the matchup that Lyric was talking about wanting to see. And so, while it will be an LPL team kill, as you mentioned there, Kobe, it is maybe something that some of those more hardcore LPL fans would be looking for. DRX, the final team to be pulled here.
Hey, that's another team kill right there.
That's well, you're gonna get a lot of those when there's only 3 regions in the quarterfinals, right? You've got two LEC and then 3 from each of the others, and so there you have. These are some sweet matchups, but again, I think this only reinforces the point that this is one of the most competitive top 8, selection of Worlds teams that we have had.
I think that last one might be the easiest to predict. With how Damwon ran through the LCK, Damwon versus DRX, that has got to be the overwhelming favorite there for Damwon on that bottom side. So I think that's the scariest draw for DRX, actually. We'll see, what they can show as far as evolution and what they've learned.
Yeah, you know what I love to see at these times is like what all the players, the coaches, how they feel, get their live reactions. Because you said like G2, you stated their record versus LPL teams, and then at the same time, I'm sure they're happy they're at the bottom of the bracket, avoiding all the LPL teams. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's. But I also love the mindset. I think it was. I'm gonna forget which of the G2 players it was, but in an interview said, at the end of the day, we do have to get through everyone, right? So we may as well start hard, get those 3-0s out of the way, and then move on and then have an easier run at the finals. Why not?
One thing to point out that I just seeing these teams in these groups so far. I know we've seen LCK versus LCK finals in the past. That's no longer going to be possible. You're not going to be able to see an LCK versus LCK or an LPL versus LPL. The only real region team kill that's possible is a G2 versus Fnatic finals. Like if if that miracle run ended up happening, then that would be the only possible route for a regional finals.
Let's try working through, again, each of these matchups just real quickly, one at a time. First up, Top Esports versus Fnatic. Kobe?
All right, this one is definitely going to be tough. I'm looking at the top lane for Bwipo because Bwipo is a very volatile laner. He loves taking trades. He's been very outspoken about that. I think so far this tournament, he's been really good, especially with the volley bear into a lot of these counter picks on the top side. But Top Esports specialize in that. Karsa goes up there a lot. They save their counter picks for 3-6-9. So I think that is going to be a battle in the pick and bans and is going to determine a lot how the series does go.
Yeah, for me, this one's a really interesting style. Like stylistically, people would look at each matchup and would kind of struggle to find one for Fnatic. For me, it's jungle, which is a great matchup if you're going into Top Esports. If you're trying to strategize how you want to be able to beat them, for me, watching Top regionally, not even just this year, but like a lot of the times, the best way to be able to attack them is through Karsa. Because Karsa is a lot of the times trying to help out lanes. He's trying to go top side. He's trying to go and aid mid lane. So a lot of the times he's trying to facilitate for his laners. So if you have a strategy level 1s like we've been seeing from Fnatic that can target Karsa so he's falling behind, then you can start picking lanes apart. This is, I think, I would heavily favor it towards Top Esports because I do have them as the tournament favorites. But I think Fnatic, that is an avenue they can really take versus Top.
Of course, following that is Suning versus JD Gaming. So again, we've already talked about the LPL team kill here, but Golden Glue, thoughts as Suning was one of the teams initially coming into the tournament we didn't have a good read on. How do you feel about them now coming out as the 1 seed in Group A?
Yeah, my eyes are definitely on Bin when I'm thinking about Suning. I think he's a really fun player to watch, but at the same time, he's had moments where he'll just, run it down like 3 times in a row, and then he'll just like 1v9 the game. So in that matchup, I'm going to have my eyes on this player and just see like which Bin shows up and if he's going to be putting, JDG in the trash bin or, I don't know. We'll see.
Or if he's falling in himself.
Yeah.
I think, been in the playoffs. This is what I love about this because it's going to be LPL fans really trying to take every piece of this matchup. Been in the playoffs was not as good. And when I'm talking about playoffs, I mean like LPL playoffs was not nearly as good as been in the regular season. So this is going to be a great matchup just to see how he kind of goes up against Zoom. Because, yeah, top lane matchup for me is the most important one.
Especially with how people have been talking about Suning in scrims for this whole tournament. That, just coming back with all these stories, it kind of feels like last year Damwon scrim talk and really building up this mythos around this team. That's what I really want to see come out in the best of 5s for them because with some volatile players that they do have, they have a lot of playmaking ability. Like Grayson's kind of alluding to, I think SOFM as well could be one that this is now the biggest stage for him. Style of me, let's see what the style is.
Yeah, I love me some style. Gen G versus G2. Kobe, I'm coming right back to you. Raz said he thinks this is the best draw for the LEC 2 seed here against Gen G. Do you agree?
I would agree from the performances in group stage. Just going matchup by matchup, like I said when they're drawn, I do draw my eyes to the bottom side for Gen G because I think Ruler for sure is going to be a big powerhouse. But I definitely agree. I think G2, as much as they're like, we'll fight anybody, we're going to beat everybody anyways, we're going to the top. I feel like they're happy to start here.
Golden Glue, it's wild to me that we would say Gen G is the weakest 1 seed. When you look at that roster and you see people like former world champion Ruler, you see people like Clid and BDD still on that lineup.
Yeah, that's what I love about this, now that we're at quarterfinals, because I'm looking at all these teams we have. I mean, yeah, Gen G versus G2, and we're saying, this is the best that G2, this is the easiest opponent G2 could get, right? And they're still, terrifyingly good. I don't know. Every single game is just going to be so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think people can make the case that Suning is like, but it's we're talking about like the best that they could can get because they were in the same
They were in the same group.
As well.
Yeah,
and
totally.
G2, they definitely had high variance performances where they looked insanely good within their group and they look very clean. I'm not even just talking about necessarily the drafts, but like a lot of their gameplay had great elements of how Mickey X was performing and how he was like his Alistar game versus Team Liquid is a great example where he set up for a long range Ashe arrow to kind of claw themselves like a little bit back into the game. And this is what you kind of expect with G2. I want to see that best of 5 G2 that we saw in the LEC playoffs and that we saw from last year that took the names off of just basically LCK team after LCK team.
Yeah, just a slightly different finals this time around. Golden Glue, back to you for the final matchup. And interestingly enough, this is almost the antithesis to the matchup we just talked about. Damwon versus DRX. I think it was Kobe who said he feels this might be the most lopsided towards the 1 seed. How do you feel about that?
I would probably agree. I think Damwon coming into the tournament, I already had my eyes on them, and then they really showed up in the group stage. And I'm really looking forward to watching Showmaker. He's probably my favorite mid laner at the tournament. I love watching him play, and he has such a good time, and he's so mechanically gifted, while also just being such a team player, right? He'll play Set, he'll play Galio, but he'll play everything to the like 99.9% of its capability. It's so impressive to watch.
I just don't want to see another 3-0. I just like personally, because we've seen this finals already in the LCK finals.
What have they learned, Raz? What have they learned?
They've got to learn something. Going up against top esports is basically that Rocky montage. 2 times in that group. You got to have learned something. Bring it going up against Damwon.
There you go. Yeah, take some learnings from the group stage. We know that the World Championship is all about evolution, in particular from groups to knockouts. So many things that generally change. New meta, new picks, things like that. And so it is up to the teams to determine what those changes will be. But with our quarterfinals matchup now determined, it's time to make your quarterfinal picks for Pick'ems, powered by Alienware. In addition to the usual perfect pick prize of every ultimate skin, fans who guess every matchup correctly will also take home an exclusive Alienware Aurora Battle Station, the exact setup being used on stage at Worlds by all of our pros. Make your quarterfinal picks starting later today at 4 p.m. Pacific over at lolesports.com/pick'em. Good luck to the few of you that are still in the running. I don't think any of us can say that we are. Right now, we're headed for a break. On the other side, though, we'll be joined by FLICKR to talk about next week's matchups. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Worlds Cooldown, presented by State Farm. We are now joined by FLICKR to continue talking and dive deeper into these quarter-final matchups. So FLICKR, I'm coming straight to you. First, just on your high-level overview, I know you were kind of hoping for that Suning JDG matchup. You got it, but how are you feeling about all of it?
We were talking before, a bit heartbroken, a bit excited. I'm really happy that we got Suning versus JDG. It was a matchup we didn't get in LPL at all. But at the same time, no LPL versus LPL finals. I don't know.
Yep.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, that is going to make that a bit of a tough one. But if we start working through each of these games one at a time, we'll just start at the top. Top Esports versus Fnatic is the draw. Give me your take there, FLICKR.
So I really like that you guys touched on Whippo's volatility, because I feel like that'll be massive against 369. But the other thing I really want to see is Knight has had a very quiet group stage, which I don't think is a big problem. But up against Nemesis, I expect and I really want to see him pop off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to come out and say that I do want to see him take more lane-dominant champions. And lane-dominant, a lot of times people will think more of like Assassins, but Orianna, his Orianna play here was fantastic. And as long as they prioritize a great matchup for him, while still having like keep in mind the 2v2 and how he can play around Karsa, I think Orianna is a great pick for that, and I would love to see it in his hands.
Golden Glow, I wonder what your take is on Fnatic's chances against a team like Top Esports, specifically because of the way that this sixth game of the day played out, where Top was very clearly able to handle a game that was slow-moving and ultimately find just that one perfect moment to pounce.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can be like super confident as a Fnatic fan going into this matchup, but I do think you can look at Selfmade and see if he can work with Whippo, and if they have a really solid day, like maybe they can put up some games, put up some wins in a BO5. It's really hard to really be confident in that, but I do think Selfmade has been playing really well this tournament, so if he can pull up into this quarterfinals, then maybe they can get a couple dubs, and maybe they can even pull out the series if they really play out of their mind.
And there's something else that I wanted to point out with Fnatic too. I think Fnatic are a smart drafting team. They recognize how to kind of round out a composition. The Malphite pick for Whippo is something that I think is really handy, because with Top Esports, there was one comp that I really enjoyed, the Nocturne comp. I thought that was really smart and how it worked together. I think most of the time though, they do pick for lanes. The one that we saw going up against DRX, where they didn't have like strong CC necessarily outside of the Ashe. Like those are the type of comps where I look at and say that can be really tricky to have and just nail down a pick. It took them obviously that long, like 20 or so minutes, to really find a pick in this game and get a kill. And I think they worked really well around it because they're talented players. But that's something that you can work around. I think Fnatic, if they can draft something that is easy to execute and is just generally a smart composition to run, I like to see that. And of course, like we already talked about Selfmade. Selfmade, I think, has been a star. For me, a top 3 jungler, performing jungler at the tournament. I would have SOFM, Canyon, and Selfmade.
Sweet. Now, Raz has already talked a little bit about Knight and specifically the Orianna play that we saw there in that 6th game of the day. But FLICKR, how do you feel about his performance so far here at Worlds? Because he was talked about coming in #1 mid laner in the world. Is he living up to that as of yet?
I think no, but I also don't think it's much of a problem, because when you look how their side laners have played, 369 and JackieLove, it's really been about facilitating them. They've had such outstanding performances. Even when you look at this group, I felt like the top and bot lane differences between teams was much bigger than mid lane. But coming into knockouts is when we do need to see that Knight from the regular split, from playoffs, even from 2019, kind of pop off, pick these things. The Orianna, he's a great Silas player. I mean, talking about champions is kind of useless because Knight plays absolutely everything, but up against Fnatic, I feel like mid lane will be their biggest strength, and this is where Knight can't just rely on 369 and JackieLove to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off your point, I want him to build a comp around him rather than him building, like, kind of fitting the comp, because I remember 2 games in group stage where really, like, they picked him a bad matchup. Be it like the Galio versus Azir, or in a pretty like short range comp. So if they really couldn't get a pick, then he's just falling farther and farther behind. And there really isn't that much skill expression in that one. And the other one was the Akali pick. Now that game he stomped obviously, but like in the specific lane, they really couldn't do much and they had to wait it out. But that's something that I would want to see. I just want them to kind of unlock Knight going into that matchup.
Yeah, I kind of want to see what these mid laners are going to do with their picks. I think you're kind of seeing a divide between mid laners that are picking the more supportive type of team-oriented champions like Galio versus like Knight's previous game of Orianna. And I do think that the meta does kind of tend to have or promote more team-oriented mid laners right now with just how important carry junglers are and even carry top laners can be. There's not really always room to have a really hard carry mid laner that also needs a lot of resources in the game. But I think that last win in that really close game versus DRX, I think that will maybe that might make top esports be more willing to pick the Orianna, pick the carry mid, and have a bit more utility or supporting from the other roles.
Well, I like that you called out the fact that the meta, is trending towards more of those carry-style junglers because Karsa, self-made, has got to be one of the spotlight matchups within this one. So much of Fnatic's success, rather, this year has been attributed to the young jungler in self-made. But he's going to have his work cut out for him here, Lyric, up against a player the caliber of Karsa.
The thing I love about this matchup is, to me, there's two teams in knockout stage that are very different from the others, which is G2 and TES, where they don't play for their lane prio to get jungle advantages, right? They play for their jungler to find advantages through ganking and facilitating lanes. But Fnatic, to me, was the best Western team at playing that jungle facilitating style. So I feel like that could definitely be the point of attack for Fnatic, right? Use their lane push, get Hilly out of lane, get into Karsa's jungle. They do kind of struggle to deal with it. But at the same time, you just said, I mean, Karsa's resume speaks for itself. This guy has so much pedigree that I feel like his laners are so strong, he'll be able to do what he needs. And then we saw Karsa in team fights is still an absolute monster.
Yeah, and I think Selfmade has these champions that you just have to ban, or at least like recognize that if you're going into it, you're gonna have problems. Like the Evelynn is immediately that, right? Yep. The AP champions, I think he really specializes in, and it allows Nemesis to pick up Lucian. So I don't expect them to ever have that in that best of 5. Otherwise, it gives them a huge advantage. So that's something that I wanted really to point out for. And yeah, like to your point, they're just completely different styles. Selfmade will kind of have already played against a jungler of that caliber or like of that play style when he's gone up against Jankos, regionally going up against G2.
Taking a look at the Fnatic roster that's got their work cut out for them against one of the teams that was considered a pre-tournament favorite. And within that, Raz, I think, again, that shouldn't be ignored. The idea of expectation coming into the tournament and what kind of mentality will be required to overcome it. But of all of the teams that I think might be capable of achieving that overcome mentality, Fnatic is one of them. They showed us time and time again at the World Championship an ability to overcome, coming out of group stages, making it to finals in previous years. I mean, they always impress.
The reason why I feel more hopeful for Fnatic this time in comparison to the last few times in international events in the quarterfinals is that there are louder voices, or at least like louder play that I haven't seen before. Like for instance, right now, in the past, you would look towards Caps and you would expect that to be the major focus. This is like years past, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm looking towards Selfmade, but what we've seen from the group stage has been Hylissang and Reckless just having hard-winning lanes. And I'm not even just talking about necessarily the matchups, just them solo killing or having a huge advantage just off their laning phase alone. If they come into this best of 5 performing as well as they have been in the group stage, that's something that fans would not expect. Analysts wouldn't expect Fnatic to be coming into the tournament, not only having a strong jungle top lane in Bwipo and how he has been performing, but also just a stomping bottom lane. So that's something that Top Esports does have to give a lot of respect to.
Well, that's the first of 4 banger quarterfinals that are coming our way. And the next one that we've got to talk about is that Suning versus JD Gaming matchup. So, Lyric, I got to come back to you because, like you said, we've been hoping for this one for quite some time.
Yeah, this one's so interesting because I think had we gotten this back during LPL, I think it would have been pretty one-sided. I don't think Suning had really come into full form. Raz pointed out earlier that Bin wasn't playing as well in playoffs as he did in regular split, but I feel like Suning have really found their form at Worlds. They just enable SOFM so well. Sword Art's so good at getting out onto the map early on. And SOFM's jungle style about, prioritizing camps and like kind of even ignoring major objectives to a degree is so cool to watch. And then all of it leading up to Bin playing things like the Omni Stone Camille, which are just so crazy, but he's good enough to get away with it.
I just wanted to point out, like, that's what the biggest surprise to me was. And I want to ask you, I'm going to start. I feel like a lot of faith is now kind of coming into play with how JD has performed. Because coming into this tournament, I actually would have expected Kanavi to be the best jungler in the tournament. When I talked about the top 3 junglers, performing junglers in the tournament, I left Kanavi out because he's had actually quite a few poor games within the group stage. And for me, faith is that JD will come back to form like FPX came back to form last year. So I don't, Lyric, how do you feel about that? Actually, because this one I'm struggling with.
I actually feel like you made a great point when we were, here 2 days ago, where you said, JDG need to fix their level 1s, because I don't feel like we've gotten to see Kanavi play a game, because every game, either level 1 or their weird drafts, it's like, what can this man do? So there's a part of me that says, okay, JDG's not going to do that. We're not going to see like this Kale Karma comp. We're not going to see these weird Echo Silas mid-jungle 2v2s. We're going to see standard JDG. We're not going to see crazy level 1s, or they're going to be the one pulling off the crazy level 1. And hopefully we get to see Kanavi. And if that's the case, I think I do edge the matchup to JDG slightly. But the cool thing about this one to me is I feel like you can justify it 60-40 in either direction, depending on if you value Worlds performance or if you value how the teams have looked over the past few months. But either way, I think this one's going to be super close.
Yeah, Golden Glue, I want to get you in on this, but I actually want to now take the top laners and the junglers and smash them together and consider this 2v2 matchup, because again, SOFM, when we talk about performing junglers at Worlds, I think has taken a step up. So him alongside Bin, Zoom, Kanavi, how are you feeling about the 2v2?
Yeah, this guy, SOFM, has looked like an absolute monster, and not only his mechanics, but also his decision-making. I think he's making the right decisions to put himself in a place to succeed in these games, and he doesn't even need to rely on his insane mechanics to outplay people, and I think that's the most impressive thing about him for me, is that he just doesn't really seem like he's a really weakness player, and he's like the player to put the team on his back. The way he works with his top player, but also the way he works with Sword Art. Sword Art's been playing Bard and roaming all over the map, and they've had such good synergy working together. And I'm really excited to watch that top jungle synergy, but also that jungle support synergy, and see what they can do with those Rift Herald fights, with those with all those objectives on the top side, how important it is to get your top laner snowballing. So super excited to watch those two.
I love that you called out Sword Art too, because just personally, I'm a big fan of this guy. He's a mainstay on the world stage at this point, as many people or longtime League fans will know, and so kind of in a sense rooting for his success as he has leveled up over the years.
Totally.
All right, from there, we go to Gen G versus G2, the bottom half of the bracket. Again, Raz, this is the one that you called out as maybe the quote-unquote weakest of the 1 seeds and or best possible matchup for G2. And so, Lyric, do you agree with Raz's statement?
Oh, definitely. I think just Gen G looking at how the other teams play is just, it was very sloppy, right? When LGD wanted to pull them into the mud, Gen G would always go right into the mud with them. I'd also say Gen G is the one team where with all the other 7, you could say, okay, they either play for lanes to jungle or jungle ganking for lanes. Gen G feels a bit like lost, like they kind of do both, but they don't really excel at either. So I still think Gen G's strong, like their player skill is very high, but this was definitely the best draw G2 could get.
Raz?
Yeah, and this one for sure is going to go the distance, because I gave a lot of credit to Gen G during their group stage. I thought BDD was performing really well. Rascal and same going towards Ruler. So like those are the type of players that you want to see, because they plug up holes where you don't have necessarily an easy strategy coming into a tournament to like pin down. But for G2, like their bot lane for me is a focus, because when Gen G went up against Fnatic within their own groups, sure, there was one game where Ruler had a really tough time. But past that, looking at the stats, it was pretty damn consistently positive. Like, Gen G can play towards both sides of the matchup, and both sides of the map, that is. They play towards Rascal a little bit, and Ruler still performs insanely well. He is one of the best AD carries performing right now, if not the best. And so it now puts a focus towards the G2 bottom lane that has been performing much better, and they need to be consistent at that. During the LEC, I felt like they weren't performing as well as the, people have expected them. I expected them. And then when they come into the playoffs, they've been having such great performance, specifically Mickey X. Mickey X was really good. His Alistar performance, I thought, versus Team Liquid, I already pointed out before, was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about the ball lane too. I think Ruler, when people think about Ruler, he's kind of like the staple for what just a great standard AD carry is. I think a lot of people can think about Ruler's Ashe, like just the auto attack spacing. But when you think of Perks, you do not think of like a standard AD carry. You think this guy can really pull out anything. Large champion pull. I mean, he role swapped, and I'm kind of curious how that's going to play out. Right? Is Ruler just gonna, out mechanic, out a click basically, just have a different type of approach to the ball lane than Perks, and which one will be better suited for each other, and will one of their play styles be able to really take over the other one? Because I do see Ruler as being kind of like one of the picturesque AD carries, and Perks is kind of like the counter image of like, I'm a mid laner and I'm better than 80 carries. I'm coming in here just to prove that I can play this role too. So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
Rez?
I just want to say, Ruler's defending the role against the invaders. I know Grace, I know Golden Glue knows this well, because if you ask AD carries, FBI is a great example of that. Ruler's just on the screen at all times. It's just because he is that picture perfect player. He's played the role for so long. He understands the matchups, the ins and outs of it. And I think that if we're going into this one, and if Gen G can play towards bot side, and if they can be a little bit more specific to bot lane, like I know that they can play to both sides, but if they play a cleaner game, if they play towards Ruler, I'm sure they will find success. It's just hard for me. I think this one's the matchup that I struggle with the most, actually, because I do think that G2 has an easier draw, but consistency for both teams have been a question.
Yeah, without a doubt. Lyric, in continuing discussion here, I think an interesting point around this matchup is the amount of Worlds experience and how deep into the tournament a number of players on both teams have gone. Obviously, former world champion in Ruler, but of course the entire G2 lineup in the finals last year. And so there is no shortage of experience within these high-pressure best-of-5s. And when you're looking at high-pressure best-of-5s for the side of G2, this man in the mid lane is who you're looking at.
I actually love that you bring up this experience, because Caps and just G2 overall have a quality that I think the only other team in this tournament has is Top Esports, that you can watch these teams that when the games go the distance, when they fall behind, they just have this like cleverness to them, this kind of like C9 high factor from like back in the day where, like the Zed ninja sneak around. They can make these types of clever plays because they've been on this stage before. They've dealt with the pressure. And that's kind of where I like G2 in this matchup. We even saw it against Suning when they started falling behind. And of course, Bin had the insane GP barrel, but G2 were going to take that game back. And I feel like even if these games, fall through the mud, they get to mid game, I value G2's experience so much higher than kind of just Rulers in isolation.
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways this could be the messiest series, but also one of the most exciting to watch in the quarterfinals. Now, in closing out the topic of G2, we do need to call out G2's Wonder, who is currently MasterCard's Minion Champion with the most CS in a single game at Worlds, topping the chart at 441. Ruler, his opponent in the next game, though, is in second place. So if we get some long slobber knockers in this one, we could definitely have a new champion by the end of it. Raz?
Yeah, I wanted to point out, of course, you never know how long the CS per minute is always the one that you want to see. But Ruler has always been topping CS per minute. He's just been really good at being able to catch minion waves efficiently. Same with G2 players, actually. So I just want to see people playing the right way. Let's not overgroup. If there are side lane minions to be caught, take those minions, please. That's all. That's my PSA for today.
Yeah, in looking at the quarterfinal matchups, does anyone have an idea of which of the matchups that we have would give us the longest games, the bigger slugfest where it really is back and forth?
I think it'll be this one. I think it'll be Gingy and G2. I think G2 will they like to get down and dirty in their games. They like to have high kill games, high death games, and I think Gingy will match that. I think they're not gonna respond with just kind of like that last game we just watched of Top versus DRX. It will not be a 0-0 game at 25 minutes. I can guarantee.
Yeah, I just wanted to put in the simple point of G2 versus Suning as the example of that. The Elder Dragon fight that brought them back into the game. If they are behind, they will lengthen the game. They will draw it through. Like I think that, yeah, G2 when they're behind, they're really creative.
Well, now keep in mind that MasterCard will be rewarding viewers with drops when Wonder is dethroned. So you're rooting for that, I guess, if you want some sweet loot. Make sure you have rewards enabled and tune in to watch.lolesports.com to get those rewards. Final matchup to talk about. DRX, of course, going up against Damwon Gaming. Damwon Gaming has looked like a behemoth of a team throughout the group stages so far, so it is a scary look here for DRX as the 2 seed, I think.
Yeah, honestly, when I look at this matchup, I feel like I gotta be really negative, but man, I can't imagine any possibility where DRX win this one unless Damwon come in with a massive choke. Like, Damwon have just looked so good, and DRX actually have surprised me. They looked better than I expected them to. I really like how they play around Pyosik, but they're still just too up and down. Their drafts can be all over the place. And again, we've seen this matchup before, and the first time wasn't pretty.
Yeah, the one thing that I've been really impressed watching DRX play has been depth. I've been really impressed with his laning, his like ability to be really consistent in lane, dominate lane, do what he needs to do, and then still like step up when he needs to. I think what I was really impressed at, I think it was the game versus FlyQuest, where he like stepped past their base and like flash netted onto the Orianna and like one-shot power of evil. That's just something that you wouldn't really expect out of someone who's like a really old player. That's something you'd expect out of someone who's like, oh, brand new, like really fresh fingers. I don't know, whatever you want to say. But he's still coming out just like it was his first time playing in Worlds. Like it's great to watch.
Yeah, he's their biggest strength, I would say. Chovy and him for sure. I want to bring up Pyosik as a player because he's someone that I think is kind of He's an incredibly talented player, and I think if he gets his hands on Kindred, that's like his champion, his namesake. He performs really well. He can control the pace of the game, so like he's getting his marks, and I think that is like, you know, perfect Pyosik. And then there are times, I'm trying to remember which game exactly. I think it was versus FlyQuest actually, where he just has like a length of time, like a 4-minute length, where he doesn't perform well. And that's what I don't want, that inconsistency from him, you know, being on this stage as a fresh face. I want to see him be able to perform at his best, and I think this series could go at least a game for DRX. Remember, like, they played before already, and Damwon is just such a damn good team, so I still think Damwon takes this series.
I think that's the key, though, that you hit there, the inconsistency of Pyosik, because Lyric, I do believe that in group stage, games were won and lost based on his performance, while the star and maybe the carry of the team would be someone like Chovy here up against Showmaker.
Oh, yeah, and this matchup is so fun, right? Because all the LCK mid laners that came to Worlds are so good, but these two definitely just over BDD for me. Chovy really is like the king of his castle. If DRX are going to win, he needs to put up big performances. But going back to what Golden Glue said earlier, is I really like how Showmaker has looked as a mid laner. Even though we've seen a bit of struggle, right? He actually did get solo killed by both Tank, and I think he also got solo killed by Yagao one game as well. There have been struggles. I still think he played team fights incredibly well. He's always playing for the objective, which is something Damwon have done as a whole. So I just really like how both of these mid laners have looked, and it feels like a bit of a stylistic mismatch as well.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really interesting. These two are kind of like the Titan mid laners coming into the tournament from Korea. And, you know, I think in Korea, Showmaker is playing a lot of Set, playing a lot of Galio, like the famous, the 4-man taunt, like killing everyone. They're both playing utility support champs like quite often. And I do think that's where Showmaker has a huge edge of like his team just being, I don't know, I think his team just edges out a bit more or like uses Showmaker better. So I think it's almost gonna be more about which mid laner can almost humble themselves and make sure they're doing everything they can for the team, while also being that carry threat and having that Orianna in the back pocket, that Syndra in the back pocket. But which one are they going to pull out, and what are the teams going to draft towards, right? I would like to see DRX coming out with some carry-oriented mid laners, and then I think Damwon can kind of do whatever they want. I think they have the luxury of, you want to play the supportive utility mid laners, you want to play Galio or Set, do it. You're still going to be able to be dominant. But I want to see Chovy on carries.
Well, Raz, I'm bringing it back to you for today's State Farm Assist of the Day because it's going to Piosik, who flashes in to mark 3 members of FlyQuest for the ultimate. Let's talk about this player.
Yeah, the 3-man, queue that he had on Lilia, like these kind of plays that you want to see, like these kind of plays that you want to see set up his team, it is incredible. Because if you find plays like these, and there's the confidence behind your own players, or at least like your teammates, know that they can follow up instantly. This is what I would love to see going up against Damwon.
Yeah.
He's a great Lilia player. Lilia, of course, being a pick that I'm sure we'll be seeing. I think the weirdest thing that we've been seeing this tournament is the fact that we've been seeing Graves first pick and Lilia kind of be left off. I think that Piosik was going to be the type that will pick up Lilia, and Canyon is more of the Graves player. And I think he should. I think Piosik should pick up Lilia whenever he can, because he's doing so damn well on it.
I mean, that was a game-winning play right there, and that's what I mean when I say he could be the one who determines the results of the game while not actively being the best individual player on his team. There is so much to look forward to next week with the quarterfinal matchups. Thank you so much once again, Lyric, for helping us break them down. I'm glad we got to that Suning versus JD Gaming matchup. I hope you have a big smile on your face for the next couple days till we see it.
Yep, always a pleasure, guys.
All righty, thank you so much. We're going to head for a quick break. On the other side, we'll welcome Kobe back to send off FlyQuest and Unicorns of Love and close out the day. See you soon. Welcome back to Worlds Cooldown, presented by State Farm, where it's time for us to send off the teams that were eliminated today. Let's start with North America's own FlyQuest, exiting the tournament at 3-3. Golden Glue, coming to you first. How did you feel about the showing here put up by FlyQuest?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's kind of sad that another NA team doesn't make it out of 3-3, but
they took down top. Come on!
To watch them take down top, like that was like kind of like a cherry on top on that ice cream sundae on your flight home to America. But it was really fun to watch. It was a really good game. It was like, you know, we had this game and our DRX top game, and like FlyQuest took down top. Like, that's awesome. They can go home feeling good about that. And although they're obviously sad that they didn't make it further, I'm glad that they put up a fight on their last day and they didn't just like give up when they had no hope.
Yeah, and I also thought it was a really well-played game, even though a lot of people are checked out, right? Because they are already eliminated, and so people aren't really paying attention. They're kind of waiting for the matchup at the end of the day, DRX versus top. I thought that FlyQuest really stuck to their style, right? They had the Blitzcrank pick for Ignar coming up huge, big playmaking support. Power of Evil is one of those scaling control mages for him, big plays for him, you know, carrying a lot later. Santorin invading in the jungle. They crafted a level 1. And I was just, you know, I was proud of this team, even though, yes, they are eliminated, like all of the North American LCS teams got eliminated. But getting these victories, I think, was really important at the end of the day. You know, it's currently the only loss that Top Esports has sustained at the World Championship. And, you know, if we keep the legend going, you know, maybe it, you know, it will go down as one of the important ones.
No undefeated teams in group stage. Raz?
Yeah, like, I think just taking a look at FlyQuest, what I was really happy about was I thought their drafts consistently were really nice. I liked the draft, obviously, when they went up against Top Esports. I didn't like the draft from TES. But when they went up against Kingzone, or at least no, Dragon DRX, I thought that one was also a good game early on. Obviously, people are always focused on like that one play around Rip Trail that caused them harm, but like this is something that you can look at. Even in their losses, they looked good. And they rallied in their final day. So, yeah, FlyQuest should feel happy about how at least, you know, the last day performed.
I mean, overall, I want to recognize FlyQuest's entire year, not just their finish here at the World Championship. This is arguably, maybe not even arguably, it might be a fact that they are our most consistent team in North America this year, making it to finals across both splits. Yes, finishing second, but then representing us here quite well at Worlds with a 3-3 record. And so, again, the journey of this new organization and their first appearance at Worlds, I think, should not go unnoticed and uncelebrated.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, they're dealt, you know, what people were calling the group of death going into Worlds. They had pretty much the favorite of the tournament, and then number 2 seed from LCK, right? They didn't get an easy hand. They went 3-3. You know, they showed some promise. They were able to beat top, but it just wasn't enough this time. But there's still things to feel good about.
Yeah, I think the one point that is a great lesson that really hurt them was more so like, they were a team that didn't want to play through topside at all, ever. It made them very easy. Like,
say that again, my friend.
They didn't touch that. If it was going bad, it was going to guarantee go worse. 15, 16 minutes into the game, and the enemy top laner is at your inhibitor turret, right? Like, these are the types of things where they can incorporate top a lot more. Even if it's a weak side, it doesn't have to be the weakest side of all time. You give it some love. So, like, those are the type of things that I think is a great lesson. Of course, like, there were some moments where I didn't feel like Solo had a great tournament. That was just the case. So, like, those are 2 big lessons, I would say, that they can come out of. And, of course, it's playing slower. Recognizing that when you have a lead, being on the same page is more important than, you know, skittering for a fight.
Kobe, then Golden Glue.
I will say that this is Solo's first World Championship that he has been to, and there's been a lot of discussion for, you know, people that are new to this stage and, you know, how much pressure goes along with it. I know everybody's going to rag on him, and, you know, he did make a lot of mistakes during the games, but he also had a lot of big plays for them, even in some of the games where he had died a lot early. And he also got a lot of attention from other teams once other teams focused, and they're like, you know what, we're going to focus on top side because they feel like they can pry open that area of the map. You know, they did set a lot of attention there too. And I would just say, you know, it's his first World Championship, and he tweeted out, you know, it's time to drink now. He'll see you next year. So, you know,
Golden
cheers,
Glue,
my friend. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. We'll see you back here.
Yeah. I just wanted to add in one final thing, just stylistically about how we're talking about they don't want to play towards topside, right? I think one of their strengths, FlyQuest strengths, when they're playing domestically in North America, is the fact that they could put little to no resources top, and he would still be fine. But just when you escalate that caliber, and then it's also a top-sided meta, it just becomes harder when you basically play this whole year of the style of, we're going to put all our resources into the mid laner, and then you go to Worlds, and it's a very top jungle carry-oriented meta, right? It kind of makes sense that they're going to be struggling at this, in that kind of situation.
Yeah, I agree.
I have heard from every player that I've talked to that has played with Power of Evil, by the way, that no matter whatever the team is, it's a team that plays around mid lane. If Power of Evil is on that team, that's where a lot of the resources are going. So he's a player that kind of does encapsulate that strategy and kind of does warp a team around it. I don't think that's a bad thing, though.
No.
It's one of the FlyQuest's biggest strengths. And Power of Evil also does a lot of shot calling for all the teams that he's on. So it's not just the plays that he pulls off. It's a lot of guidance, too.
Right. Yeah, I think absolutely. Power of Evil played quite well this Worlds. I think Santorin should also get a nod. But we do want to recognize Ignar, who proved that every second counts by using the last moments of sweeper vision to land a clutch blitz hook, made possible, of course, by the Cisco network.
Yeah, this was my favorite one. Ignar landed a bunch of hooks, by the way. 2v2 kills in lane later on. But I like this one because they were moving up. Santorin just had the sweeper on. And as soon as they caught the little radar vision from the sweeper, boom, he instantly pulls the trigger, hooks him back in, followed up by Wild Turtle. It just shows there's no hesitation on this FlyQuest team. They've gotten to a point with their synergy where they trust each other, they follow up on each other's plays, they then are able to kite out on the Gallia ultimate, and that's one of the reasons they were able to get a victory versus LPL #1 seed.
And we'll come back to wrap up FlyQuest in just a minute, but to put a capper on the FlyQuest discussion, let's hear from Lore, who spoke with Power of Evil about his Worlds run.
And thank you very much, Dash. Laure here, joined by Power of Evil after a fantastic day, actually, for FlyQuest on this last day of group stage. Piri, I hope there's some positives you can take away from this run.
Yeah, we are definitely happy that we had a strong finish in the end. Obviously, we are still all a little bit sad about not getting the most important win against DIX, but obviously closing out, winning against TAS and UL definitely helped us overcome it.
You came back to Worlds after missing for a couple of years. Last time, as I said, was with Misfits in 2017. So is there anything you can tell me on the level at Worlds and its evolution since the last time you were here?
Well, Worlds is always obviously from every region, the best teams, the best players. And I think especially Group D was insanely stacked mid laners-wise. So I learned a lot playing against Chovy, Knight, and Nomans. I think they were all really great players, really good mid laners, and you could really see that you're just fighting for every CS, you're fighting for mid lane priority all the time, and there's gonna be ganks from both teams. And I don't know, it was just a pleasure playing against these mid laners, and I guess just learning from these matchups too.
Yeah, I agree. As you said, many interesting mid laners that you faced here, and you will be back playing in NA next year for sure. So is there anything you learned from this Worlds run that can help you next year in the LCS?
We definitely learned as a team, since obviously the mechanical level is a lot higher, so you get punished in lanes way faster. As a team, they won't give you much leeway, so instantly if you give up a few dragons, they're going to be there for the third one, the fourth one, they won't give it up. Same way for just trading objectives really fast. So they're just overall better, obviously, as a team. So mistakes get punished really fast, and I feel like we learned a lot as a team, trying to avoid these for the future, and obviously doing and adapting these good traits for ourselves.
That's a very good insight here. Thank you for sharing it. But how about you on a personal level? You've been playing for years now. Again, you got to face very interesting mid laners. So any personal learnings through this experience, maybe?
I don't know. I was really, really happy to make it back on a personal level because I struggled in Optic and CLG 2 times we couldn't make it. And obviously you start... even if you're performing individually good, something is missing, something is lacking, and then making it back-to-back finals, and then going to Worlds is obviously a huge achievement. It helps you for your own confidence too. And yeah, I don't know. I was just really happy being back here And I'm happy that we won against the top team and we showed a good performance, because I think going to Worlds as well and then kind of like just losing is obviously really sad. And I feel like we had a pretty good showing, and sadly it wasn't enough.
You fought until the end, and like you said, you were not in an easy group. So honestly, I'm very proud. I hope you're proud of the performance you had here, and all the fans who've been cheering for you also, because they've been very vocal through this Worlds quest, on socials especially. So is there anything you would like to say to the fans who've been watching you?
Obviously, there was a lot of fans who were like somewhat trashing on NA, or who were really vocal about NA being like not as good. I think the main thing I want to say is that for all the people who cheered on us, all the people who supported us and were loyal, I guess, in a sense, just a big shout out and thank you very much. I feel like we all tried our hardest. I know that all of my teammates were practicing all day, every day, and I think we were somewhat anxious going into today because there was like a lot of pressure on us, especially after the two teams didn't make it out of groups, because like we all read social media. But I'm really proud of everyone on my team that we just stepped up today. We tried our hardest, and hopefully we could make some of you guys proud.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You managed to make NA fans smile after all, and that's what counts. But Piri, thank you so much for the interview, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next year.
Thank you very much. And
back to you, Dash.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you to Power Vivo. I will say, at least for myself, I take great pride in the performance that FlyQuest put up on the world stage, showcasing greatness, as is their team motto. Finally, we have to give props to the final team in the group, and the first CIS representative to advance to the group stage, Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, I want to take this because UOL, for me, they were a very smart team. I really enjoyed their drafting style. It felt like you always had to respect the AP mages that can go in either mid or bot lane. But you have to respect No Man's Kassadin, like in the way that he would be able to pick it. And just remember, it's just the culture of LCL teams. If you're in the CIS region, you're getting out of play-ins for sure, and you're going far. At least like in terms of like contesting these groups. And for me, you can already take a look at the champion pool. It's actually crazy how many champions Gadget has played throughout the entirety of Worlds and has taken bans for. Consistently banning his Karthus has been a big one for me.
I'm loving the focus on the bottom lane. I was just so sad that this replay was 3 replays in a row of their bottom lane getting focus and dove over and over, because I'm right there with you, Raz. I fell in love with Gadget in the group stages of play-ins, when he's busting out these mages, but then he's not just this, tricky, oh yeah, I can play mages in the bottom lane, it's this, extra fancy stuff. He pulls out the Twitch and he hard carries multiple games for them, getting them to the main group stages here. I just really thought that flexibility was super useful. And then the individual players you're talking about, No Man's had one of the funniest clips where he is able to run the entire team around on Kassadin in group stages and come out with big victory for them, as well as Ananasek stealing a lot of Barons in the games that they had today to try and keep them in it. Even though they didn't have nearly as much success once they got to main stage, group stage as they did in play-ins, I really enjoyed following them the entire time.
Golden Glue, we also heard Power of Evil shouting out, all the mid laners in the group, including No Man's. But I think what's so intriguing to me about this team is it really does continue to push the narrative that, sticking to your guns and the ingenuity and the creativity that has gotten you to the point you're at now, I think in a lot of ways is still the right move, even when you get to the world stage.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the one thing that was nice to watch about UOL, even though they didn't get as many wins as they'd want to. They were still sticking to what gave them wins in the past, and that's really how you can learn and improve. And they weren't just trying to copy paste comps that the better teams were running without knowing why they run them. So I do really appreciate that, and I think that's a good choice for the long term and just on how to improve, right? Keep doing what you're doing until someone punishes you for it, right? Wait till you blind pick Kassadin and then you get a Vayne mid into it, right? When I saw him blinding Kassadin and not getting punished, I was like, I want him to continue doing this because I want this man to get punished for blind picking Kassadin. And he did. So, but But hey, that's how you learn. That's how you.
That is exactly how you learn.
Change.
Exactly.
I like that. As a mid laner, Grayson's like, that's not allowed. You need to get punished for that.
He got away with it. He got away with it over and over in plans. And I was like, this is not okay. It's not all right.
One thing I really liked about their plans was then they tricked teams into thinking the Orianna was going mid, get a mid like blind out of them, and then they would go Kassadin, and that didn't happen afterwards. I was like, all right, well that's interesting. But yeah, just kind of taking away what Coach Sheepy has said for this team. Remember, like even though they were an insanely successful team in the LCL, like the second best team is not even like there's no contest there. So the lessons that they would have if they're trying to play and learn off performance has to be in these international events.
Right.
So I love the fact that they were able to learn as much as they could, soak in that information, and then hopefully, I always say this, and I really hope that offseason works out well for them because I want to see this team stay together, come back stronger, and kind of like when they go play domestically, that they can work off the concepts that they've been kind of hammering in since the last international event.
That's a competitor's mindset, and that also brings us to the conclusion of our day. Worlds 2020 continues next week with the quarterfinals starting on October 15th. Keep your eye out for the matchup schedule that will be released tomorrow. That's going to do it for us here, though. So for myself, the casters, and all of the remote broadcast crews from all around the world, thank you for watching, and enjoy a look back at Groups Week 2 with our Axe highlights. We'll see you next week for more Worlds.
Hello and welcome to Worlds 2020.
Suning is going to probably be considered the heavy favorites coming into this.
Yeah, I might be looking for it as he flashes. Oh, does manage to grab the kills. Now Gemini trying to fight him off, but the rest of Suning turn up, and Big gets out alive. Suning say they're moving to 3-1 as we have two teams and 3-1 now in Group A.
Here comes 4JJ. He can set it up. He can make the play. He can find the ult, but he only manages to hit one. Angel simply next on the list. Now the ultimate coming in for the Jin. That's the curtain call. Suning 1, 2. He's looking to make it 3. That's the finish out. TL, what a turn. In North America, if you're not awake now, it's time to wake up. Can you feel it? The Team Liquid Miracle Run Dream. A tactical sweep for Suning because they are just cleaning house. G2 deny the chance for Team Liquid to play their way out of this group. Oh, but as they back out, they're not put together. You got Gangplank on the flank. Gangplank, one big shot, Ben! Can you do it? Huge! My God! One moment, one shot, one barrel. That's all you need, Suning.
Third seed of the LPL will take first in their group and take down the first seed of the LEC.
Inspired is taken down. Gaming goes godlike. Valkyrie coming in from the side. Piercing Darkness fired off. And look at all that damage. Goodbye, Finn. Goodbye, Rogue. Goodbye, hopes and dreams. Dom1 Gaming just absolutely shredding them.
Canyon is here, and he is darn angry. Collateral damage goes in. The base call lands Bell on the backline, and he gets the shutdown onto Kanavi. And this is an incredible fight for Dam1 Gaming. As the Hexag Ultimatum has the engage, dives in, 3-man stun. There's the Hexag Ultimatum, and Ghost is done for. The bullet time rips Dam1 Gaming to absolute shreds. Gods can bleed, and JDG showed us that today as they will defeat Dam1 Gaming in the final game of Group B.
Going for the kill. They might pick him down. He's going to try to get away, and he cannot. Plus the steal self-made. Fnatic get everything. Them home with even more deaths for good measure. Fnatic eliminate TSM from the quarterfinals.
Movement speed, but it's not going to be enough. Hillsong is eventually able to lock him down. Shockwave's going to come through. That picks up 2 kills. And Hillsong's not done it. And Fnatic are smashing this game. Them are Fnatic. And now the Dazzle comes in yet again. Clint dives on top of Reckless, unable to lock down that kill just yet. Self-made in trouble as Ruler. Oh my God, the